The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by 2T Fitness and the Vegas Beer Guys.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. You have been forewarned. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is the Dirty Harry edition. We're talking sudden impact. Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, of course, the man who's hoping I make his day, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello, Tom.
Listen, punk. To me, you're nothing but dog shit, you understand? And a lot of things can happen to dog shit. It can be scraped up with a shovel off the ground, it can dry up and blow away in the wind, or it can be stepped on and squashed. So take my advice and be careful where the dog shits you.
Love it.
I took that from someone put that quote in a blog, which is where I found it, and it's prefaced by... From the movie Sudden Impact with Clint Eastwood. The speech is not the greatest, but the delivery is fantastic. First of all, if you don't think the speech isn't the greatest, why have you written it out?
Why are you putting it in print form?
Secondly, what are you talking about?
Yes.
The speech is great. That's as good as the most quotable Dirty Harry lines.
That's fantastic.
Definitely the standout line in this movie, I would say.
Well.
Apart from the most famous one ever.
Okay. I was going to say, come on.
Which I forget is in this movie.
I think most people do. I think if you were to ask most people, they'd think it's from the original Dirty Harry, and it's not.
Right. That's really, I mean, I think I said it before. I can't think of any other series where the
most iconic line comes from deep into the series.
Movie. Yeah.
You know,
when the series is basically over because
Yeah.
the Deadpool is not a Dirty Harry movie, so.
But is this a Dirty Harry movie? I mean, I had said this in the last episode.
You alluded to the fact that it's not as much of a Dirty Harry movie as The Enforcer.
We don't have a partner. He's not in San Francisco.
Or do we have lots of floating mini partners?
Yeah.
I would argue the latter is.
I'll give you the dog.
Too many partners. We've got Horace King. We've got the
Horace
dog.
King is floating in and out as a partner, we'll say.
So we got Horace King.
And then he sends a surrogate in the form of a dog.
Horace King, meathead. Don't forget the hot dog gobbling old school cop come Newsies character he meets at the first side of the first murder. Arguably, Sandra Locke is his partner in this movie as much as anyone is.
But it's a different style of movie too.
It is a different style of movie. It's also interesting, speaking of the Dirty Harry formula, that arguably Dirty Harry has no partners in this movie, and yet one of his partners dies. It feels like they can't help themselves but to kill off his partner, and at the point at which that guy dies was the first inkling I got that he might be his partner. It's never stated in the movie up to that point that they are partners.
No.
But when he dies, I thought, oh, that's probably his partner. Because he just died.
Because he died, therefore, ergo, he must be his partner.
Well, when they do the paperwork on his murder, they'll just be like, let's just call him Harry's partner. It's easier to put him with the rest of them. I don't want to have to create an entirely new file.
Which I'm sure Harry will be transferred to soon.
I'd love it if in... I'll save that for my picture sequel. I'm not going to blow that now.
All right.
So, yeah, anyway, carry on. So, it's a movie... It's... I have mixed feelings about that. I definitely, as the movie goes on, you start to see two parallel narratives kind of
Mm-hmm.
going at once, and then they converge into one movie in the second act of the movie, and yet that movie is not anything like either
Right.
of those stories.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something structurally that's a little weird about this movie. I just think overall it pulls it all together at the right times and just about does it to my satisfaction.
No, I'm not going to disagree. You know, it's funny.
But coherent this isn't.
No, yeah. It's not coherent in, well, certainly the bad guys in the last movie weren't too coherent either, but
Right, yeah. I feel like the two plots have momentum.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, so I mean, okay, look, we're talking about Sudden Impact. This is a 1983 movie. It's directed by Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
and we know Clint Eastwood. You mentioned, the first one, Play Misty for Me.
Yeah.
We mentioned in the last episode, but we're talking about movies like Unforgiven and Mystic River, A Perfect World, which is a movie I really love, $1 Million Baby,
Interesting.
and most
I'll
recently,
have to revisit that on that recommendation.
oh, love that movie.
I did
Most
not enjoy
recently,
it.
American Sniper, Sully,
Richard Jewell,
Richard Jewell. I mean, the guy's been around,
J.
And-
Edgar,
and he can make a movie.
2 movies about Iwo Jima.
Yeah, right. Cry Macho, The Mule.
He's also like, I think, I've already said about how much I admire Clint Eastwood and the high points of his career. He makes to reference another one of your podcasts. He makes baskets of movies.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like there's like 3 or 4 movies that can all go in one basket.
right.
So
It's like he gets interested in something and he hangs around there for a while.
So, Outlaw Josie Wales, High Plains Drifter,
Right.
Pale Rider, Unforgiven, all essentially the same movie.
Yeah.
And yet, they're worth seeing individually, but you know that they're speaking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of a series in which I don't know what film is which, I am also not confident as to the idea that True Crime and Absolute Power are different movies. I can't get my brain to accept that they are different movies.
That's great.
The poster of both are exactly the same. Exactly the same. They're just... So he makes movies that
I
are
know the
different from
difference.
each other, but not different enough to be considered completely, complete anomalies.
Mm-hmm.
He's always, like you say, he's always working on some system.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, we misspoke in the ranking episode, because as a director, he did the 2 Iwo Jima movies, which are kind of one is a sequel to the other. So that's another Clint Eastwood series. as a
Yeah,
director.
or at least companion pieces. Sure.
They do. I mean, they cross over significantly.
Yeah.
I think. It's a fascinating career. I think
It really is.
Film historians will look back on it, and there will be so much to talk about and discuss.
Well, and I think
you'll discover little gems like For You, Perfect World. For me, movies like
Yeah.
Bird and White Hunter, Black Heart.
Yeah, right.
These movies that don't get a lot of play or interest, but you go, oh my god, this guy is.
These are interesting movies, though.
These are really interesting movies. Yeah.
Well, and I think we both spoke to this maybe in the ranking episode. As a director, he makes his presence felt in this film.
From minute one, and that's what to me makes it more of a guarantee that this is a good movie than The Enforcer, which has elements of a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no doubt in my mind that this is a more interesting movie because of what he brings to it as a director.
Yeah, I have to concede.
And also his cinematographer Bruce Surtees, who he works with frequently, also the cinematographer of Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, not coincidentally, who also likes his natural lighting, natural nighttime lighting, which is a big part of this movie. And there are just scenes in this movie where I'm so grateful Eastwood is directing. Like it really incidental stuff. Like there's a bar scene about halfway through, and just the way the scene is lit, the way that the action is organized, the flow of people and extras, I'm just like, God, it really makes a difference.
Right.
And when you compare this to the next movie, and there's a lot of crossover between this and the Deadpool, I think. But it's not directed by Eastwood, and it really shows.
And it shows, yeah.
Like, it shows from second one.
Actually, the thing that I find most interesting about Deadpool is the constant refrain in my head is, would it be better if Eastwood directed it?
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I think certain things would be handled a lot better.
Well,
I feel like this a pair of safe hands is what I'm saying.
Right. Exactly.
But also interesting directorial vision for how you make movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what puts him above other kind of journeyman directors, I think. It's like you get his directorial take on what's going on.
Well, and say what you
not
will.
All directors can do that.
Right. Say what you will, and we're going to have plenty to say about the Deadpool, but none of these movies fall below 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. This particular movie, 57% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ew.
But it's the highest, it's the biggest money-making movie in the series. A higher budget, $22 million, $9.6 million on its opening weekend, but in the USA and the world, $67.6. And that's the high watermark for the series.
Right. I mean, and you know, that makes sense because it has the most
I really do think that's part of it.
Yeah. I wonder if...
Because when you talk about an opening weekend of less than $10 million...
Don't think people know what film they're reviewing. I really don't. This is all mixed up. I can't be the only one who has this problem of not remembering which movie is which.
I think part of it has to do with... Do you think it's possible that there are plenty of reviewers in the country who just think... Because it's 1983... And it was 1976 the last time we saw Dirty Harry. So do you think part of it is, oh, do we really need this in our lives? So you kind of go into it with an agenda?
Yeah, and I think, you know, there are scenes in this movie that might, if you go in with that mindset,
right,
will play bigger in your interpretation of it. Like everything to do with Meathead.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All the stuff with the mobsters, which feels like races. You know what I mean? Like that's a very small part of the film, and you can I can immediately go, yeah, but what about the Acorn Cafe scene? What about Frank Pentangeli at Granddaughter's wedding? It's like these are solid, iconic scenes. Mm-hmm. But if you're going in thinking this is going to be a crock of shit, and you get Meathead, you might that's going to be confirmation bias for you.
I like that you're still referencing Michael Ficasso as his character from The Godfather.
Uncredited in this movie.
Yeah, I know.
Why would you have Frank Pentangeli in your movie and not make a thing of it? It's extraordinary. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. Obviously, this is the first chance we've talked about the Pentangeli effect.
Remind our audience what that is.
The Pentangeli effect is when you have a surrogate for a character in a sequel that is equally matched yet an entirely different flavor.
Yeah.
So you miss nothing in terms of quality, but you get a different kind of pleasure out of it.
Mm-hmm. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do an episode on all of our jargon. So that as people watch, they can keep a little list with them.
Never mind that. I want to do a movie called The Pentangeli Effect, which is just about Frank Pentangeli. could digitally resurrect Michael V. Gazzo, make that technology work for us for once.
For once. Yeah, use it for good. All right, so we are talking about Sudden Impact. Like I said, this is the biggest money-making movie in the series. The line, "Go ahead, make my day," is listed as number 6, the sixth most memorable line.
So where does it stand in relation to "Do You Feel Lucky, Punk"? Because to me, they're
I'd
parallel.
have to look that up. See, that's the thing for me too, is they're right next to each other, aren't they? But
it's like if Abraham Lincoln, said 20 years, and then later on in his career, he said something else, and that was what was remembered. It's that kind of level.
Right.
We're still talking about his 4th Gettysburg Address.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating, and I mean I understand why, because the scene works so well.
All right, so
you
know what's interesting?
It's an iconic, popular movie
Mm-hmm.
that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I found interesting was that this movie starts with some opening credits and then has a cold open.
Yes.
That's a little weird, isn't it?
It's a little weird. What really struck me...
And it's different than all the other movies because they just show you the killer's face.
Yeah, they Columbo it.
Yeah.
1983 comes in hot. That's my first note. Drum machines, remixed beats.
Yeah.
For some reason, even though it's pre-Ghostbusters, all I can think about is the Judgment Day scene from Ghostbusters.
Right.
I don't know. It's not even the same city. But it just looked, to me, it's like it's part of the same mid-80s pie. Also in the opening titles, you're like, yeah, here's legacy names. Are any of them playing the characters from previous movies? Nope. None of them. It's like they should have had introducing the Dirty Harry Repertory Company. Bradford Dillman, Alvin Popple, like the little star faces come out.
Yeah.
And Lalo Schifrin's back as well, but a score that does not sound like the music we associate with him, which is kind of 60s, 70s TV themes and movie themes. The theme from Bullet came on my Spotify the other day. Oh my god, that is an incredible piece of music.
Oh wow, it's been a while since it's been too long.
I mean, Dirty Harry's great.
Yeah.
The music for Bullet is outstanding. But I like the fact that he's like riding the wave of the 1980s rather than like staying in his comfort zone. He's going, this is what music sounds like in the 80s.
Right.
So I'm going to do my version of that. And then the first evidence for me of Eastwood's influence is that camera pan fade into the car.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the natural lighting and just the fluid camera movement, to me, speaks of Eastwood's movies. I don't know why.
No, it's funny you say that because one of my first notes is as that camera is, it's kind of going over the water and it's showing, but, all of a sudden you get a fade.
Yeah.
And now we're in the hills and the camera's coming into the car window.
Yeah.
And I remember, but the thing I wrote down was this feels very Eastwood.
But it's also, I think it's also trying to emulate Hitchcock too.
Yeah, I would agree.
And they're using San Francisco. They're thinking of Hitchcock's Vertigo, like sex, death, eyes.
Right. Yeah.
Which is very Hitchcockian. And also, maybe also reflects how De Palma's kind of processed Hitchcock as well.
Mm.
Like there's kind of a little triangle going on here of like Hitchcock directors that ape Hitchcock and then directors who ape people who ape Hitchcock.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
There's something going on here. There's a kind
It's
of
a
Venn
snake
diagram
eating its
here.
tail.
Yeah. But it really works for me. I mean, it's he's good enough to do that type of cinematography. I don't know any other way to put it. It sounds so pejorative, but I just think he's good at what he does, and it really shows sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I feel
Well,
so
and it's
uncomfortable
funny
saying
because despite the fact that you have, Bird being his first movie,
that.
and
Play Misty for me.
sorry, Play Misty for me.
Yeah.
But he's done Bird. He's done
Yeah.
some really interesting films.
Oh my God, yeah.
But I think it. Do you think he was thought of as a great director at this time?
Not really till Unforgiven, is it?
Yeah, I think it's another decade.
I mean, he'd already made Outlaw Josie Wells, which I think
Yeah.
is one of his greatest movies, and High Plains Drifter. They're in my top 3 for him, but in the public consciousness,
that's what I mean. In the public consciousness, I'm not sure that he's thought of.
And then everyone forgot. And then everyone forgot about Unforgiven, and he had another wave of Oscar glory with $1 Million Baby and
Right.
Mystic River.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a case of everyone continually forgetting how good he is, but he just keeps making movies and keeps reminding. I mean, that's the thing where I'm sort of like, sometimes because his movies come out at such a rate, sometimes I feel, I always want to see whatever he's just made,
Mm-hmm.
but they come out at such a rate, and some of them don't look that interesting, and I think, okay. And then I'll catch one of those movies, and I'll go, he's still got something good and interesting to say.
Right.
Richard Jewell is an interesting movie.
Yeah.
It's an interestingly made movie, and I didn't think he's capable of that
Right.
still, but he is. So that I just think we just go around the houses with Eastwood sometimes.
Well, at the beginning of this movie, we're going to court.
I have that too. Harry in court. It's like, we're back.
Yeah.
Bam. The core dynamic of the series: Harry versus the justice system.
Yeah, exactly.
You couldn't get it more.
And I just love that you get the
stripped
bureaucracy of the court as opposed to his police precinct.
That's interesting because, there's a Reaganite shift.
And I was just going to say that when you couple that with this idea of what's wrong with justice right now,
Mm-hmm.
that the bad guys can be released on the technicality. There's lots of talk about that around this time.
Yeah.
And I think it's fueled the way this character's presented in the time and the way we've looked at justice since around this time. Still to this day, I think.
There's something. This movie's trying to pull off a weird trick where it's reminding us that, that we've been doing this formula for 3 movies, but it also wants to spin the take on the justice system as something entirely new and of the time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's snake oil.
Yeah,
for
right,
sure.
right.
But it's kind of interesting. I mean, I like the fact that the judge looks at Harry and says, "This is an old story."
Yes, right.
It's like there's some
We've
self-awareness.
been here before.
We've been here before. No, in this series, but in world as well.
Yeah.
Like, even the people in the movie know that this has happened. This is a formula. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But I also like that it kind of, in relation to the other movies, this feels like the Enforcer kind of felt like it was remaking Dirty Harry to some extent. This feels like it's starting with Magnum Force, And I had my eye on it the whole time. It's like, how much like Magnum Force is this movie going to be? Because thematically they're very similar.
Yeah.
About what's the limits of vigilantism.
Right.
And it was just interesting that we start same exact beginning. A criminal gets off a murder rap on a technicality. I mean, it doesn't look like Richie Cunningham in this movie, but
no, right. Well, in this movie, it has a different feel. I mean, it's going back to that car scene, but that's very noirish.
Very noir melodrama, like old Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hitchcock movies, and then we transition into this bright daylight.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and this overlit court scene, which I think is very deliberate. It's a very deliberate contrast, I think.
And I think I think it's smart, actually, in the sense of, you remember like Law and Order episodes when you see courtrooms in New York, and then if for whatever reason they go to California,
Yeah.
those courtrooms look like that. They are the huge, brightly lit courtrooms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, the very least you can say about Eastwood in his movies is he's always on top of his lighting.
right.
I never watch his movies and think they haven't thought about this.
They haven't thought about it. Yeah.
Aspect of lighting.
Well, like you said, we get a guy released on a technicality. We have a Cameron Manheim sighting in an elevator, and then we get the shit line.
Yeah, and the prosecutor of the case says again, this is the movie keeps going back and forth. The judge says this is an old story, and then his lawyer says this just doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah, right.
Well, which is it? I mean, either he's been doing this all his life, or this is like, oh, he's just out of date now. He was out of date in the 70s.
Right, exactly.
When he was doing this shit. Like, people were already saying, you can't do this shit.
Well, and we have a situation where, art is kind of colliding with life, because the city of San Francisco wasn't sure they wanted Dirty Harry back to film in the city.
Fantastic.
They didn't think that they wanted that character representing San Francisco anymore. And it took like some finagling to the point where they said, well, everybody loves Dirty Harry, so it's a good thing. Let's do it. I don't know.
This in the next, speaking of which, this in the next movie, extremely metatextual.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the next one,
crazy, but
in an over-the-top way.
Yeah.
But even here, like, I don't think it's an accident that the killer, in quotes,
right,
in scare quotes, is an artist.
Yeah.
And a painter. I think Eastwood's sort of working something out with himself as a director and how he stands in relation to the art community here.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a level of, unlike maybe the other two movies.
Spoiler alert, is that why he lets her go? He's asking the world to let him go and be his own artist?
But lines like "I never drink with a critic" or "The one rule I never drink with a critic." When she said, I'm thinking, I wonder whether he's sort of filtering his thoughts about being a director, how Hollywood treats him through this character. I don't know. I mean, that's one aspect.
All right, let's take a break because I've got more to say. I got a great story about the idea of critics, specifically related to this movie. So
fantastic.
We're off to a great start. Let's come back right after this quality message, and we'll be right back.
The Dirty Harry Repertory Company.
Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. We're back, everyone. Tom and I are here discussing Sudden Impact, the Dirty Harry movie that might have had the most impact.
Yeah.
You know?
Suddenly.
Who'd have thought? Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to ask people what movie did Go Ahead Make My Day come from, they would say Dirty Harry. They would never say Sudden Impact.
No.
But we've also already discussed the difficulty with remembering the names of titles for this series.
If you told them it came from the fourth movie in the series, I think they'd have a difficult time accepting that.
Yeah.
Because you assume the iconography's already been written by that point.
Yeah, right.
But not the case. I mean, you know, the Acorn Cafe scene is as
So, yeah, I mean,
as famous a set piece as anything.
That's about where we are. And we have one of the most iconic, famous scenes in all of, cinema.
And it has shades of this, the Do You Feel Lucky Punk scene from Dirty Harry. Like, it feels like it's shot similarly. It's a similar situation.
But it's more claustrophobic because it all takes place inside. And
I have that here.
Yeah.
I like it, the impasse of this. The sequel inversion is the threat's on the inside, not the outside.
Yeah.
They've just literally flipped it.
Well, and and going back to Eastwood's direction, the shots are close up. I mean, you have a close up on his face, and then we push in. And then you have a close up on the criminal, and then we push in, and then we push back into Clint.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's delicious.
It is. It's such a.
I think I said in our ranking episode that man likes a push in.
He loves a push in,
and he's using them to full effect especially this scene, but in this movie.
And it's really this begins a pattern in the movie, which a disturbing pattern. Every time you see a bunch of criminals together, they are all racially similar.
Yeah, they're all black. I have that note.
No, they're not all black.
Oh, you're right.
So the first criminals we see are white. All white.
Mm-hmm.
The next group of criminals we see are all black. All black. The next group of criminals we see are Hispanic. All Hispanic.
I meant in that scene. But
yeah, I know. But it's like it's a segregationist approach to criminals. There is no intermixing between the races in the criminal world.
No,
that's what this movie's telling me.
Right.
And I can't help but think of Ronald Reagan when I think of that. Because we talked about that in going back to Rocky 3, which is our go-to racism counterpart.
Right.
I remember thinking at the time, it's like they were Stallone was smart enough to, like, in the shots of the streets, it felt like 50-50. It felt like it was, when it showed homelessness in LA, there were as many white people as black people. Like, and I feel like here they just haven't applied the same real world sense to how the underworld actually is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like bunch of black guys, bunch of white guys, bunch of Latino guys. I mean, I've got nothing but praise for this scene. I think it's excellent, and it ends with a line that is deservedly iconic, but it's a beautifully shot and constructed sequence.
Right.
I think, not that I approve of this, but frequently the, Facebook video feed, this scene will pop up.
Oh, really?
On it's like a video of this scene, and it is you could absolutely. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. That if I was going back in time and cutting the trailer for this movie, I would just show this scene.
Mm.
I mean, obviously, I had no problem getting butts in seats.
Right.
But.
Right.
Can you imagine how successful it would be if the trailer was this scene?
Just the scene. That's funny.
Although maybe you would be like, wow, that was the best thing in the movie. Why did you show
I was just going to say, because to me, it's also that idea of save your best shit for the movie itself, and don't put it in the trailer.
I've been watching a lot of I've watched in a lot of old movie trailers recently, and it's fascinating how differently they do things.
They're constructed differently, and they're so long, and they show you so it's just like
the Hickey and Boggs trailer starts with, "This is how the movie begins," and it shows you the first 2 minutes of the movie. "This is how the movie ends."
Oh, wow.
It shows you the last 2 minutes of the movie. Says, "And what Hickey and Boggs will do in between
will
blow
that's
your
interesting.
mind." And I was just thinking, that would not stand today. I mean,
No,
aside
yeah.
from the fact Bill Cosby is the lead in the movie. That would not stand
Right.
today.
Well, but also,
And
the thing that would stand is that they if I was cutting trailers, here would be my rule. I don't want to show you anything from the first or the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Right, well, it definitely goes against that rule.
But I think even trailers today, they break that rule every time a trailer comes out.
Well, they're just nonsense, aren't they? And,
Yeah.
and they're not even. They're
But to
just
the point, especially about
shots from what they think are going to be in the movie, not actual scenes that are
Yeah.
ever going to be in the movie. I'm still pissed about, when I went to see Trainwreck and there wasn't a scene of Bill Hader commandeering a hansom cab.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you put that in the trailer, you don't put it in the movie.
You're an asshole.
You have disappointed me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we go pretty much straight from that to what I would say like a similarly iconic scene, or like a as good a set piece where Harry walks into the wedding of mob boss Michael V. Gazzo, and I love it. This is the movie is firing on all cylinders at this moment. First of all, the way the cops react as if a criminal has entered the building.
Mm-hmm.
Like they call in Harry.
I like how he gets in the building too.
Yeah, this sort of like if a criminal went into the building, they would react no differently. And then he calls ahead for an ambulance.
Yes,
which is both brilliant and obviously like a callback to Fistful of Dollars, where he says,
"Sure,
3 coffins."
That's that scene. And then he gets to the table, and it's only Frank Pantangeli, who is not even in the title, so you don't know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I
you hadn't seen this, right?
I hadn't seen this. I did not know.
How apeshit did you go?
I went apeshit. I knew from the way
Did you have to pause?
Oh yeah, I knew the scene was building to it being a familiar face. Like just going the way it's shot. But,
well, familiar to you and me.
No. Okay, fair enough. But it was just we talked a little bit in Magnum Force about the Godfather chic. And mobster. It's Frank Pentangeli, champagne. Where his granddaughter's wedding. We know what we know what iconography they're pulling from. Or maybe Eastwood thinks that because he was in The Godfather Part 2 that he's a lucky charm for a sequel.
Maybe.
Except then you have Cannonball Run 2, which Michael V. Gazzo is also in, and probably is.
Is he? Oh, it's been so long. Now I gotta watch it.
It's more. I mean that he's not the only Godfather cast member in that movie. Not at all. There's a bunch of them. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah, and he's got a few Bond-esque lines in this scene.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. However,
he also apparently single-handedly saved gargoyle glasses by wearing them as for product placement in this movie.
Fantastic.
Which I think is delicious.
But I feel like the Dirty Harry part of the movie kind of peaks here.
And that's the thing. It's like after this, we're gonna meet the partner,
potential partner.
We're gonna get some great kind of Dirty Harry lines like, and I still say this to this day: nobody puts ketchup on a hot dog.
Oh, that's great.
Which is fantastic.
It is. What comes before though?
He's a legend. You're a legend in your own mind.
Oh, that's great. That monologue he has on the cliff while the guy is eating the hot dog, while his pre-partner is eating the hot dog. I was like, it seems like he's reading out headlines from a conservative newspaper. What he's saying about crime, or maybe directly from a Reagan speech, is what it sounds like. And it's so funny to me. It's like it's like we're sort of respinning this these core conflicts of the series
Yeah.
through the Reagan prism.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like we've rebooted it through Reagan, you know?
Yeah, right.
But it's the same old conflict dressed up to look like it's something that's just happened
Mm-hmm.
because now you have a law and order president in charge. You know, like a pro-drug war
Right.
monster.
Right.
And I use that term generously. And then we switch to the other movie that is developing.
Right,
within this one
exactly.
movie.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Jennifer Spencer, artist.
I put it
artist
as
murderer.
right. I put it as Locke's Oscar moment? Question mark?
Oh, I hope she really didn't think that was the case.
It felt
'cause
like
she
she
ain't getting
did.
it- She ain't getting it in the middle of sudden impact. That's
Yeah.
for sure. And she sort of, she wards off some Latino date rapists.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get Bradford Dillman playing
Yet
a
another.
surrogate for Captain McKay,
Yeah.
who is not called Captain McKay, but is called Briggs,
Briggs.
which is the name of Hal Colebrook's character,
Yes.
who we know to be dead and a villain.
Somebody explain it to me.
There's only a certain number of names they feel they can use.
It's so strange, Tom. It's so fucking strange.
It is, and that's the entire movie for him as well. So you'd think
Yeah.
he's only in that scene. So you'd think that if they were going to cast anyone, it wouldn't be Bradford Dillman. Because, like you, people would only be confused because he's only in that scene. There's no
Right.
chance for him to even explain that he's not Captain McKay. Oh, by the way, I know I look like I have a twin brother
Yeah.
with a different name.
Anyway, it's one of the bizarre moments
Yeah.
in this movie, and there's another one
I'm not
coming
averse
up.
to it because it's Bradford Dillman, but it
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Right. So it makes absolutely no sense. Well, and we're not quite there yet, because first we have this automatic weapon fire car attack on Harry from the mob. He's been warned about the mob coming after him.
Did this remind you just a little bit of a scene from Naked Gun?
Yes. You have no idea how many times in these last two movies I wrote notes that said, did Naked Gun take their scene from this?
I think at some point...
I think it's in the next movie where he's driving down the street and no, it is in this movie when they throw the Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. That is the most Naked Gun moment
It's the
in
most
any of these
Naked
movies.
Gun thing
He's
ever.
driving a flaming car. And yet we're cross-cutting between these.
Yes,
these
we
kind
are.
of we're cross-cutting between these action scenes that appear to be a parody of themselves.
Yeah. Because the
But
one
with
we're
a-
at is a different one where the
Right.
mob attacks him with submachine guns.
But we're cross-cutting from that. Not only is that, you're like, whoa, that's there are some odd choices in these scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you cross-cut for that straight into a totally straight-faced and legitimate psycho-melodrama, which
Yeah,
is Jennifer
right.
visiting her traumatized rape victim sister in a vegetative state.
Yes.
Which is handled perfectly well within the frame of the scene. It's what it's kind of cross-cutting with that is jarring.
Yeah.
Like, Eastwood can totally do this. He knows how to do melodrama. And this will become important later for a variety of reasons. Some of them story, some of them stylistic.
Mm-hmm.
So we're building to something, and it's a very important scene, but you're going between that, and then you're also in the shooting range,
Yes, exactly.
where we've got to show off this, the special guest gun,
The new
of
gun.
the movie.
And this is one of it should be a smaller complaint, but this is one of my big complaints with the movie, Tom, because, well, Popwell shows up. Do you know what I'm about to
Still
say?
could be Mustafa. He's not saying he's not Mustafa for a
Right.
while.
He could be anybody, but we know he's not going to be Mustafa because he's a different person every fucking time.
That's true. That's true. We should know.
But he rolls up in the car and he opens the car door. Did you notice that just like plainly in sight is whoever is second director directing that scene, and the camera itself
No, I didn't see
mirrored in the car?
that. Oh. That's how they always get you on the mirrors.
It's gross.
I also
Well,
I
in the
thought about-
window, like in the window.
I also thought about you, given our discussions about Blade and action suspense sequences that turn out to be complete misunderstandings.
Understandings, exactly.
He's literally just getting out of the car and taking his gun to join Harry at the shooting range.
Yeah.
He's not trying to murder him.
Harry, however, cannot be snuck up on, so he just turns around and points his gun right at him.
Right.
And I mean, you referenced earlier that the moment where you figured that Horace must be his partner, but in this scene itself, it's nothing's explained.
No mention, no.
Is he a police officer? I don't even know.
Doesn't. No, there's no confirmation of any of this information. I love the fact that in this scene, Harry throws in that he might just quit.
Yeah.
It's like,
You mean that thing you've
you've
done like
resigned so
seven
many
times already?
now, this has no meaning anymore. I'm not even sure you're still a police officer. Technically. Is he still being paid?
Right.
How many times can you resign and still be on the payroll?
I'll tell you one thing I really do love about Dirty Harry himself, because when you think of Dirty Harry, you think of this hard as nails cop who's not taking any shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the repeated word, he's always got these kind of repeated phrases in the movies.
Yeah.
In the last movie it was marvelous. In this movie he keeps saying swell.
God, you really noticed this. I didn't notice this at all.
It's great. He says swell like 1,900 times. And so in this moment,
Is this Eastwood Tourette?
Horace calls him a jamf. And he's like,
Yeah.
"What's that?" And he says, "Just another mother." And he cuts him off and says, "Forget I asked." Like, he doesn't even want to hear cursing, this character. I kind of love that about him.
We can have 10-minute scenes where two women are being raped, but you can't say motherfucker.
It's so funny to me.
Yeah. Well, that leads into the hypocrisy of that when you lead into, a very sensationalist scene of rape violence, which serves a plot purpose,
I guess my
but not
question,
at that length.
Yeah. So my question for you was, because again, we're in a 90-minute movie. This is this is the long one,
This
right?
is a 2-hour one.
This is the 2-hour one. So, do we need to see any of that? Because he's already
need to see no flashbacks.
we're already
Strictly-
seeing
it's
he's
not
already
strictly
doing a great
necessary.
job showing her face, and she's actually doing a great job showing the pain of the past.
I don't think any of the flashbacks give you any information you didn't already know or will later know.
Yeah.
However, this is particularly offensive because it's such a sensitive subject, and it's almost as if he learns his lesson by Unforgiven,
Right.
because that rape scene is off camera.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more than just it's rape and like knife violence.
Right. Attacking.
But it's handled in such a sensitive way that is almost the opposite of this. And if you think about like other movies,
This is
maybe it
gratuitous. And actually,
yeah,
this might have
reminds me of
lent
The
towards
Accused.
more negative reviews. This one choice.
Yeah,
could have.
And I think of it in the same way that I think of The Accused, which
Mm-hmm.
is a similar project where it's trying to make you identify with the victims of rape, and yet also being very voyeuristic about how it shows
Right.
rape in extended scenes. And there's a kind of hypocrisy there that, I don't know, feels like that's an 80s thing that we got over.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that even by the early 90s, Clint Eastwood's not making the same mistakes.
He's saying that's a little gross.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's gratuitous in both senses, like you say. We don't need to see this to know that it happened,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gratuitous because we have to watch women being attacked
Yeah.
for unbroken for long periods of time.
Is this, by the way, it's starting to remind me, is this whole movie a remake of High Plains Drifter? I think it might be.
All of these movies are High Plains Drifter, Tightrope. This is also a remake of Magnum Force. It's very interesting. So this is the point in the movie when they send Harry on vacation because mobsters keep
Except it
attacking
takes
him.
2 or 3 scenes to make that happen.
This is the point where I was like, okay,
I
we
said
have
go on vacation. Next thing you know, there's a fucking car that went off the pier. Didn't I tell you to go on vacation?
This is the point at which I'm like, okay, these are 2 different movies now.
Right.
There's no crossover between these movies anymore. But then I also thought about, like, you know, Eastwood been directing movies for about a decade at this point. And this is like the 2 different sides of his oeuvre, isn't it? Like,
yeah, right.
Like the Jennifer Spencer part is in the Play Misty for Me.
He has put 2 sides.
Psychodrama
Yeah,
mode.
it's like
and
2
then he's
sides
got
of
the
a
urban
coin.
action movie side.
Yeah.
And then we get Harry in the flaming car.
That's great.
Which is, I don't know if they're going for full on comedy, but that's what we get.
It's.
But how much of an impasse is it that Harry goes on vacation? You know what I mean? Like Babe Pig in the City in reverse.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm great. What I know, it's kind of a cliche, and it's a choice where you go, okay, like this feels. It's like, well, are we going down
but
this road?
it's also
but then I'm grateful because we've seen all we can see of San Francisco at this point. I'm glad we're going somewhere
and
else.
it's like it's a
It's
working
overtaken the
vacation.
series.
It's a working vacation. There might be a connection to the case, so go up there and take a couple of weeks and relax.
Well,
so the mob doesn't kill you, which he's already foiled by hiding in a trash can. But
it's such a San Francisco centric movie that I had to check that they were talking about Sao Paulo and California and not in South America, because I was just like, they talk about it if it's like a world away.
yeah,
And isn't it like 70 miles or something?
Right, yeah.
From San Francisco. I'm like, that's such a regionalist view of the world.
Well, I
It's
also like that
go
he
to this entirely different place a little bit
yeah.
down the road.
I also like that he shows up in the town and everybody seems to know him. Hey, we do things different here, mister.
Well, if Clint Eastwood turned up in your small town, you'd be... and he foils a robbery on arrival.
And I was just going to say, because my note is, Callahan happens upon more crimes than humanly possible.
And then, they have
He
a little
shows up
fun
in this town for 10 seconds and stumbles upon an active crime.
They have a little bit of fun with his aging,
Mm-hmm.
with the retirement bus and the OIPs cheering him on. I kind of like that.
I like that. What I wrote that I liked was when the old man says, "Shag his ass." And of course, Horace gives him meathead by this time.
That's right. And it's around that. So we've got So we're suddenly in a Beethoven movie.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
By the way,
again,
I don't know if it was
at that point I can't help remembering that about 10 minutes ago we were in an extended rape scene.
Yeah, exactly. I read something. I don't know if it was this dog that they kept, because Sandra Locke and Clint Eastwood, this is their last movie together.
Oh, you're gonna say this is their last dog together? I was like, what did they do?
But
with the other
they
one?
either kept this dog or got another dog and called that dog Meathead.
They cut this dog in half. They each took half of it.
And then they each painted it.
By the end, he literally was a meathead.
Right.
When the divorce settlement had gone through,
Meathead.
Clint got meathead.
That's an
meathead.
incredibly dark joke. Oh, he was a head of meat.
This is also around where we get introducing one of the star turns of the movie, which is Pat Hingle
Yeah.
as the police chief. And as soon as, well, I saw his name in the credits, and then I saw him on screen, I thought, oh, this, you know this is going to be good. Like,
Yeah.
It's like, there's no doubt in your mind. It's like, first of all, you know, we know he can play police chiefs. Right? You have that in the back of your mind. And then, you know, you watch the scene, you go, yep, this works. I like this idea of Pat Hingle as a small down police chief. Great casting.
Right.
And then, this is skipping ahead a little bit, but in the scene, after the beach killing, Harry tries to sort of pull rank on him.
Mm-hmm.
And his outburst in that scene, I'm like, wow, you're not leaving anything on the table, Pat Hingle.
Right.
It's like, there's so many scene-stealing turns in this movie.
Pat Hingle doesn't fuck around.
Sorry, in the series. And I'm just like, okay, well, I was already in because you're Pat Hingle and you're playing a police officer.
Right.
But you've exceeded even my high expectations of what you can do with this part. Not to mention, like, in the course of the movie, he's not just a stock bureaucrat. Like, he actually gets some ambiguity and depth. You realize that he's looking out for his psychologically affected son.
Mm-hmm.
You actually sympathize with him, which is problematic, but we also need that dimension, I think, for this kind of story.
I always
I don't like that we're identifying with a rapist.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the people who protect rapists.
Yeah.
But in the context of this story, I get why Eastwood did
Right.
it. Even though his mindset is probably affected by conservative dogma that you should care as much or more about the rapist than the rapist than the rape victim.
Right. Why don't let's take another break. And
I've just figured out why I'm so uncomfortable saying this is a good movie.
Well, for me, we're going to get to the part of the movie that I think I like the most.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited.
I'm loving all of it from this point on.
Oh, this movie's peaked for me.
Really?
Kinda.
That's funny.
The first half is much stronger, I think.
All right. We'll be right back and we'll discuss it.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here, of course, discussing Sudden Impact, the Dirty Harry sequel from 1983, directed by Eastwood himself. All right, Tom, so you were kind of referencing it, like this is where the two movies crash and become one. Basically,
Yeah, they literally crash into each other.
Right. I was just going to say, right when Dirty Harry Callahan runs smack dab into Jennifer Spencer.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
is not really attacked by Meathead, but kind of, sort of.
Right. Absolutely.
And I guess, I probably misspoke as we were going to break because I said this is when what I really like in the movie, which is not true. It's the
okay.
very end of this movie is what I love the most.
Ah,
but
well, we're relatively
We're getting
close
close,
to
yeah.
that. This. I think I referenced this at the beginning. This bar scene.
You mean the
Which is
one,
really
the one where my note is, for my next trick, I'll kick a woman?
Well, here's the thing.
When Dirty Harry kicks her in the ass and
Yeah.
puts her to the floor?
There is a part of me that, like, again, this is something I'm conflicted about a lot of elements of this movie, and one of them is I like the fact that in contrast to the Enforcer, we have a lot of strong, badass women.
Mm-hmm.
However, I always have the nagging feeling in the back of my mind that we've just created a bunch of piece of shit women so we can have women attacked and not feel so bad about it.
Mm.
So both things are playing on my mind.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that,
And by strong
female
women, by the
characters
way, you're saying, murderers.
evil.
And evil.
Yes. Aiding and abetting rape.
Yes.
Everything. The beach. I mean, so the bar scene, which is not a big deal. It's only a big deal to me because I'm just looking at it, going, look how good the lighting is. Look how naturally everything is flowing in this scene. This scene doesn't really mean anything in the context of the movie, but I'm glad Eastwood is applying his talents to such a incidental piece of film.
Right.
And then the beach murder.
Yeah.
Which feels again very Hitchcock, De Palma, even a little bit.
I was gonna say,
Jaws in there as well.
Yeah. But I had major De Palma, especially De Palma reaching for Hitchcock vibes.
Yeah. Like
suspenseful.
Cinematic suspense done in the classic style.
Right.
Harry's movies followed him to the new location. I thought I was done with this movie with the mobsters.
My note is Harry finally kills the last mafia thanks to Meathead.
Right. And it's about this time that we start to see that Pat Hingle's not just a kind of bullish bureaucrat.
He's got something more to do with the story actively.
Yeah, he's actively covering up his son's involvement in the crime. And that felt very Magnum Force-y to me.
Mm.
That the police are sort of they're culpable.
Yeah.
In a deliberate sense, not just by not doing their jobs.
Sure.
They're doing their jobs too well. And just, it really hit me. It's like, we're in a small town crime drama at this point.
Well, not just that, but
we're going around the hardware store. We're in
Yeah.
the bar with the day drinkers. It's like, this is a totally different movie now.
we're starting to get half a date movie.
Oh, and what was going on when we saw Vegas and tits in close succession for no reason? We flashed to Las Vegas for half a scene,
Right?
And come back again. I was like, this movie's going all over the shop. It's interesting in relation to the last movie where sexual violence was something to laugh at. In this movie, it's a much darker vision of prostitution that's closer to, and sexual violence that's closer to what happens in Magnum Force.
Right.
I mean, aside from the the sensationalization of it, which I think is a different issue, that still comes from a place of we want to show these kind of crimes on screen. We're just not sure how to handle it in an appropriate way. But the intention is always to say, is anti-sexual violence.
Mm-hmm.
So, nothing like the sauna in The Enforcer can happen in this movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't have that scene. There's nothing funny about sex in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way we had in the last movie.
Well, and we get some casual, or not so casual, racism as well when Horace dies. So you add that into the mix.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, something that's there that
point.
doesn't need to be there.
It absolutely doesn't need to be there. Additionally, you know, the homophobia of, like, they keep calling this woman a lesbian, but all she really wants is this one guy.
Yeah.
So presumably her lesbianism is a shield because she's so in love with this one guy, which is, you know, I mean, Chasing Amy's kind of about that. So we don't talk ourselves out of that problem for a while,
Right.
but it's very much a problem to the representation of. Is it Ray? Ray is the name of the sort of the dykish character who is who's one of the ringleaders of.
Yeah, Ray Parkins.
Oh,
wait, that's the actor, I think.
Oh, is it?
I don't. Oh no, maybe not. Audrey Neenan is Ray Parkins, right?
It's a great performance.
It is. Yeah.
Well. I really buy it. I really buy that she's doing everything she's doing, and aside from the you know, evil gay stuff.
Yeah.
Which also she doesn't really seem to be gay, so I don't know how that works.
And he doesn't have a
I don't know
lot
how that
of
stereotype works.
He doesn't have a lot of screen time. He doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have, you know what I mean? But Paul Drake is fairly menacing as that main bad guy as well. So all of that works.
Yeah. And once again, you know, as with Magnum Force, Harry and the villain have exact same views of the justice system when he and Jennifer are talking about crime, the issue of crime. They totally agree with each other. So once again, Harry is philosophically in line with the bad guys.
And I guess this is because I loved Magnum Force so much, this is one of the things that's, you know, I mean, I'm starting to waver, but I guess on my initial viewing or rewatching of this movie, I wrestled with the idea that Harry is completely going against everything that he said that I found so interesting in Magnum Force.
Right.
In Magnum Force, he's saying, I have to work within the system. What you're doing is wrong. In this movie, because it's a woman, he says, well, yeah, we should probably let you go.
Yeah.
But also in the sense of, there's that part of you that can understand the terrible thing that befell her and her sister and her want for revenge and for justice that never happened because of a corrupt police force. So, you know,
and this is where the
I do like that it's murky in that sense that there's you know,
I like it too. I even like the fact that we get to identify with someone who was ostensibly part of the rape, and I think the same thing happens in The Accused, right? Like there's one guy who's involved in the gang rape kind of tangentially who ends up coming down on the side.
Same for Unforgiven.
Against the rape. Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, that leads you down a very dark path of identifying with people who shouldn't necessarily be identified with, but it lends an ambiguity and depth to the representations of the characters that is needed here, and it's something that Eastwood does very well in his characterizations. And it feels like you would have been cheated without seeing Pat Hingle in the light of a father who understands what he's doing is wrong, but cannot let his son pay the price. And likewise, you know, we have a direct a visual parallel that Jennifer's sister is in the exact same position as one of her rapists.
As one of the exactly.
Conceptually,
that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, and you know, you could take that in the direction of saying we shouldn't be seeing them as comparable in any way. But I like that as a movie thing, is what I'm saying. If as a real world thing, I think it's disgusting.
Yeah, right.
But in the context of this movie and what this movie's trying to do, I think it needs that level of empathy. Because those are good things to have in movies that are psychologically driven. You don't want to. And likewise, I heard on a podcast this week, like someone saying, "I'm tired of movies about revenge where they don't discuss whether revenge is a good thing or not.
Yeah, right.
And this is one of the movies that actually says, revenge isn't all
Yeah.
it's cracked up to be.
Well, because, and it's funny you say that because, I'm on the other podcast, we just were recently talking about Gandhi a lot.
One of those great rape revenge movies.
Well, just going to the other side, though. Like what forgiveness does, what nonviolence does, so the Dirty Harry movies suppose a certain kind of idea of justice that have not served our country well in the intervening years,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting to watch Harry wrestle with that himself a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying about that it feels like a bit of a cheat that Harry's view of the system has changed so much.
Right.
But I think it is, and I absolutely think because it's a pretty woman.
Right.
It changes everything. I get that's definitely happening here.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see it from the other side where it's like, well, if we're going to keep making these movies, shouldn't there be some kind of character growth? Or, you know what I mean? Like, you could play it from both angles.
Sure.
Just as you can with the rape victim, rapist, like, identifying one with the other. It's not consistent with real world thinking about these things, but I want it in the movie because it makes it a better movie.
Yeah.
So.
Well, now we get we're basically at the end, right? It's like Sandra Locke is kidnapped.
Mm-hmm. Fisherman rapist. Beating up Harry.
And they kick him off the pier. We've already had the setup through the through the gun range scene that Harry's got a new special kind of fantastic gun. As you stated before, that we got a new piece of hardware for every movie, and this is this movie's hardware.
Right.
One of the things I love that I read about this particular movie was that gun didn't work very well, and it jammed a lot, and every time it would jam, Clint Eastwood would get so pissed off he'd throw it in the ocean, and they had to have divers on set to go get the gun, dry it out so that they could reuse it.
That is amazing.
Which is a fantastic story.
They should have done a Raiders of the Lost Ark and worked that into the movie.
Yeah, right.
Where he throws the gun into the ocean and then pulls out a tiny pistol.
That's amazing.
Like for your eyes only, blowing up the Bond car. And you have to use this little Citroen piece of shit.
Well, but I'll tell you, so, I mean, the things for this movie that are so iconic to me that I never ever lost in my memory were the iconic line.
Yeah.
The "Go ahead, make my day," and then the silhouette of Harry against on the pier.
Reborn.
Yes. With the gun. Like, to me, and even he directs it so that even the characters in the scene see how amazing it is. Because one guy turns and says, "Holy shit."
Well, he's survived death in a way that is surprising.
Right.
I think that's also factoring in. You're right. It's part of it is like how striking he looks in the silhouette.
Right.
But part of it is we just threw this guy in the sea.
Well, and as we know from Magnum Force, if you fall 10 feet into the sea, you die. So they can't believe he's alive.
Only if you're blonde. Yeah, it is. It's you're right. It's equally equally iconic image. And I think this ending really solidifies.
That should have been the poster.
Yeah, that should have been
instead
the poster.
of the broken window with just Clint's face. This is the only poster.
Which does not help you remember what the movie is.
Exactly. This is the only movie without a gun in the poster.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. so the like we're back to Magnum Force in terms of we identify with the villains and we hate the victims, right? You know what I mean? Like we're in a similar situation because everyone who's attacking Harry and Jennifer at the end of that movie is a victim or a potential victim, and yet they have become the villains of the piece.
Mhm.
So it's that full on reversal, that 360 that Magnum Force does again.
Right.
They re-360'd it from the last movie, which was do what you want to anyone kind of thing.
Great death.
And what do you think about this in relation to... Because I could see from your point of view that this is a less progressive ending with regards to gender than the last movie.
Right.
Where Tyne Daly kind of takes control of the situation, saves Harry, saves the mayor. This is kind of playing it both ways, where Harry has to intervene to save her, but she also doesn't need to rely on him as much as she might do to get what she wants. But ultimately, it's down to Harry whether she goes to prison or goes free. So
Not before she gives another Oscar-winning speech.
he said entirely genuinely. Do you not like her performance in this movie?
I actually do.
I do too.
I think it's an actually really good performance, but I do too. I just have the sense that there must have been some private moments between them when she said, "This is when this is going to happen, mister."
Yeah.
You know?
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Before they cut up the dog. Yeah,
Right.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because you said this is right at the end of
This is
their
like
marriage.
this is the last one. I mean, and it's, it's one of those Hollywood relationships, let's just say, it doesn't end well. I mean, it ends in court. They're suing each other back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, it lasts for years, at least a decade, I think.
Wow.
It's ugly. And her career suffers from it,
Yeah.
you know?
Is she still alive? No.
No, she died, I want to say 2017.
Oh, okay. So I mean that's a pretty big deal.
2018. Price is Right rules. I win.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we've said all.
Did you
we
know,
need to
by
say
the way,
about-
that she's an Oscar-nominated actress?
for which movie?
The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, 69.
That sounds like a fake movie, but yeah, okay.
I've never heard of it either, but
I've heard of it, but it's a movie that has a Troy McClure-ish kind of quality.
really?
To it. Just you can imagine. You may remember me from The Heart is a Lonely Hunter and Gladys the Groovy Mule. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything more to say. Like I think it's both a retcon and an interesting story move, like at the same time, letting her off the hook. And you kind of sense it's going that way, right? I mean, it's not a big surprise.
Well, because you already have him. He sees the license plate at the scene of.
Oh, he knows it's
her. So
for
it's
a while.
And it's not like he's charging right up to wherever she is and arresting her right away.
Yeah.
If he'd done that, she might not have been kidnapped. But
as you know, I approve of kidnapping in a sequel. Well, I mean that's all I had for the for Sudden Impact. A little bit of a credit check.
okay.
Do you have anything else you wanted to?
No, I mean yeah. I mean, I we're at the end. I certainly got through all my notes.
Oh, I know what I missed. Just to add to the Hitchcockian imagery, carousel.
Yeah.
Throughout, it's like a motif throughout the movie, and then the finale is there.
Oh, I was saying that earlier.
Strangers on a Train.
Yeah.
The end of Strangers on a Train. Yeah.
But I love
an explicit reference.
I love Mick's death. I love him falling through off the roller coaster, right? And onto the unicorn's horn of the carousel.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah. That's very
That's
good.
fantastic.
So this is the first time we have a song ending the movie, rather
Right.
than just a bit of a melancholy
Instead of
version the theme.
orchestral sad music.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, to me, is like another big 80s change.
Oh, yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? And it's Gladys Knight, I think.
I don't even remember. I didn't write it down.
I think it's Gladys. I'm going to double check, but I think it's. Let me see. Gladys Knight's Sudden Impact. This is either where I confirm it or find out about a car accident
Right.
that Gladys Knight had. Oh dear. Oh, this is not answering any questions. You might have to cut this out.
It's coming up
Oh,
with
is
more
it Patti
questions.
LaBelle? Gladys Knight's Sudden Impact theme. It's not coming up. Roberta Flack.
Okay.
I'm not that far off. But, you know, it felt like, and again, that sort of slightly
This Side of
Bond-esque
Forever.
aspect. Yes. And I also thought, you know, like, it's also quite a melodramatic.
But we
way
have
to
that
end the
pull
movie.
away shot. We're pulling away from the roller coaster. We're,
Gotta have
you
it.
know,
You gotta have the pull away that then turns into a postcard.
into the freeze frame.
Yeah. It's kind of, I half expected we'd go back to San Francisco.
Oh, really?
It's interesting that we end in San Paulo. It's like, is this where the series is going to be from now on? Like he never says, I gotta go back to San Francisco.
He becomes the chief,
You keep cutting up that dog.
solving the many crimes he happens upon in this small town, this small seaside town.
It'd make that's a perfect TV series right there. Dirty Harry retires to a small town and solves crimes in his spare time. Again, piggybacking on the credit check from the last movie,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have a movie that's kind of serious about, you know, a subject like women being raped and have names like Young Hooker, Hysterical Female Customer. Whoever is writing your credits is a bona fide sexist.
Oh, mercy.
And that's all I had.
All right. Well, that's a good conversation. I really do like this movie.
I know, it doesn't sound like
and
you
I got to tell
does
you,
it?
going into it, I wasn't sure that I would. I remember because what I remembered was the line and that silhouette.
Yeah.
So I went into it thinking, I'm not sure, and the hot dog. Like nobody puts. So to me, those three things maybe not enough to sustain a movie.
I don't know. I'm gonna say if any three moments could carry a movie.
But when you add
Pretty
the
much
flaming
that-
car, when you add, you know,
I don't want to. You see, that's the thing. I don't want to. I want to forget about Meathead. I want to forget about the flaming car. And I want to remember everything. I want to remember. I want to forget about the 10-minute rape sequence.
get rid of that
You know.
for sure.
Yeah. Get rid of Bradford Dillman, or at least call him McKay.
Yeah, call him something else. God damn it.
Yeah. It's a flawed movie
Yeah.
on lots of levels, but it pulls itself together enough, I think.
I agree.
And there's so much to enjoy along the way,
Right.
but you do have you have to look quizzically at the screen a lot to get through this movie.
Exactly right. So
Why are they doing
I
this?
have
Why are we
those
going here?
I have those problems. I have the, really you don't see your director in the mirror in the window there problems. So there's some basic competency problems.
That's a big one for Eastwood. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a 10-year career. He should have seen that.
But like I said, there's something about the movie that still is able to. It's an interesting enough movie.
Yeah, I think it hits the nail on the head often enough that you can call it a good movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's speaking of our next episode, you can see the series start to break apart in a way that might not be reversible. You know what I mean? Like you can get away with it in this movie, but never again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of confirmed by the Deadpool, I think.
Toy car murder scenes.
We've already gone full Naked Gun. Where can we go
Exactly,
from here?
right.
And yet we somehow got away with it.
You've already built enough material for Leslie Nielsen to have,
and he's still
a solid career, a solid second half of a career.
I'd have to recheck my notes, but isn't he also being chased by mobsters in the next movie?
Mobsters? Or at the beginning?
I think he's still being chased by mobsters.
I think it's mobsters. I think you're right. Because there's the big shoot up and his car like careens through into other cars. And...
I'd love it. I really want to do a Dirty Harry TV series with a running gag that every time he like leaves his house and tries to get into his car, he's attacked by mobsters. Like just on the way to work,
we'll have to...
he has to fight off mobsters, and it'd be like the Fred Flintstone putting the dinosaur out joke.
Yeah,
but
we'll have to go back and review episodes of Sledgehammer, see if that's in there.
Or McGonagall.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's it for Sudden Impact. You're going to have to let us what you know, good or bad, great or terrible. Where do you lie? Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. For Tom Stewart, he's from Lonesome Whistle Productions. Mike Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. Give him a little treat, Tom.
Somebody grabbed their chest. Must have seen the bill.